Hear Marine veteran Chris Albert tell his story of how he hit rock bottom and went from living out of his car to starting Warrior Soul Apparel, a successful military clothing company, on episode 126 of Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that JOB trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
I've been a USAA member for over 26 years. USAA has been alongside my family for my entire military career, including my transition out of the military. In addition to providing great insurance and banking products, USAA also provides a wide range of tools and advice to make your transition from the military a financial success. To learn more, go to veteranonthemove.com/leaving the military. Marine veteran Chris Albert founded Warrior Soul to inspire veterans, shirts that inspire you and others to be the best versions of themselves. After leaving the Marine Corps in 2005, Chris says he was hiding from his own dreams and stayed in school working towards his PhD. Eventually, after a lost decade, Chris decided to follow his dreams and opened his own gym in California. Through entrepreneurial success and failure, Chris found his way into the online business arena, initially starting with YouTube training videos, and now runs Warrior Soul Apparel. All right, Chris Albert, welcome to Veteran on the Move. Thanks for being here today and sharing your entrepreneurial story. Before we get started, take us back a little bit and tell us what you did in the Marine Corps.
Well, I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1999 and came out of Parris Island, was 0311 infantryman. And from there, things were kind of, I got to say, boring during that time up until, we were training a lot, but up until September 11th, 2001. 2003, was deployed to the Middle East. I served with IMCSF Bahrain, and then was jumping ships between there and Iraq. Came back, I was stop-lost at the time, and, really, it wasn't like a hero deployment to Iraq or anything like that. My job was security while I was there, and didn't run into much or anything like that. Came back, got out in 2005. I started getting the symptoms of a disease called ulcerative colitis, and had to have my ankle reconstructed because of previous injury. And then ended up going from there into the civilian world for a while, and found myself in school.
All right, and so you got out of the Marine Corps, you decided to go to school. So take us through, did you end up finishing school, and what happened beyond that?
Well, this is the thing, man. I basically hid out in school. I was a lot better at school than I thought I would be. So I went through bachelor's, master's degree, all the way up into PhD. All the while, kind of falling into a bit of a depression where I was extremely lonely. I found myself drinking a whole lot. I was excelling at school. I was excelling academically, but kind of doing my work with a bottle of whiskey every night. And while I was in school, a lot of the Marines I served with ended up going back to Iraq, and didn't have such a nice deployment. We lost a couple of friends of mine, and that hit me really hard because, when we were there in 2003, everything seemed, like it was coming to an end. We got back on the day Saddam Hussein was captured, and then these guys ended up going back over and ended up being in Fallujah, and didn't have as easy of a time as I did. So I was going through a lot of guilt at the time. I kept going with school. I was studying international politics and quantitative methodology, and I ended up moving from Connecticut out to California, which kind of extended my loneliness a bit. And it was I wasted a decade, man. I wasted an entire decade. And I don't want to say that school was a negative thing or that I didn't learn anything from it, but I basically ended up, just sitting there trying to please other people by going to school. My mom always wanted me to be an academic. She didn't want me to go in the Marine Corps. She didn't want me to, do anything but become a college professor. come from an immigrant Italian family. We held academics very highly, and I was basically trying to please her, trying to please some of my relatives, and really wasn't doing what I really wanted to do.
Chris, man, thanks for going deep with us like that. I really appreciate that, and I know, myself and a lot of veterans experienced similar things. I find it interesting that you said you were hiding in school. I hear there's a lot of veterans these days because in some ways the GI Bill is so good, they almost feel obligated that they got to go to school, and you get the sergeant's BAH, and hey, I can live on a college campus for next to nothing, and the only reason they're going to school is to hide out and suck off the GI Bill, and they don't really, there's not really going to school for a purpose. But you said you were hiding in school. At this point, it seems like you've come out the other side. What do you think it was you were hiding from?
It was almost like I was hiding from my own dreams, where I had this dream of being a business person, of being in the fitness industry, of, trying to make something for myself. And everybody was telling me, in order to do this, you need this degree. In order to do that, you need this degree. And I figured, if I need degrees to do this, I might as well study something that was mildly interesting. So when I got into school, I studied war. I studied conflict. And it was almost like I was trying to justify not taking any action on those dreams by continually going to school. I mean, when you think about it, why would somebody? I ended up being a personal trainer, and I own a clothing company. Why would somebody go all the way up through PhD and then just go do that? It's because, like I said, I was trying to please other people. I wasn't thinking about what I wanted. I was thinking about what my mother wanted, what my relatives wanted, what the whole family wanted for me. And I wasn't being true to myself at the time. And hiding, I think I was hiding from that conflict with my family, hiding from the idea of being a disappointment. And I think that was, now that I'm saying that and it came out off my tongue, I think that's what I was hiding from being a disappointment, hiding from being somebody that my mother wouldn't be pleased with. And God bless my mother. I love her so much. She's been such a major influence in my life, and she's very supportive of me now. But the worst thing in my mind at the time was to be a disappointment to my family.
And you say, God bless your mother, and my wife and I have 4 teenagers right now, and it's kind of a catch-22 in some ways. You try to push your kid toward one thing, and really the only reason we're trying to push our kids toward certain things is they're not coming up with the ideas of their own, or at least they're not verbalizing them or communicating them. And so sometimes when you feel like parents kind of pushed you into something, it's because maybe you didn't have your own plan, and the parent felt, well, if you don't have your own plan, then this is what you should probably do, because it's as good as anything else. So sometimes that happens, and next thing you know, it's like the road to Abilene. Next thing you know, you get a PhD, and you're like, this isn't really what I wanted to do.
No, seriously, I was sitting there, and the way I studied war, it wasn't like I was going into, the archives examining, Chesty Puller strategies or anything like that. I was adapting game theory, which is a mathematical way of creating theories. So I'm literally creating mathematical models of conflict, which is interesting in and of itself. I can't, I do have an interest there, but I'm staring at a computer screen, staring at formulas most of the day, sitting in Southern California where I went to school at the University of California, Santa Barbara, literally not seeing the light of day ever. Like literally being blinded when I would walk out of my front door. And at a certain point I said to myself, this isn't living. This isn't life. I'm not gaining any experience here. This isn't helping me. And that's when I decided I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I said to myself, because I've been going over and over in my head about depression in life, and thinking about a lot of my friends who had passed away, and I said, this life is short. Someday I'm going to die. Someday I'm not going to be here. And if that's going to happen, I might as well be happy doing what I'm doing. There's no reason to spend any day for the rest of my life um, not doing what I want to do.
Well, it's deep stuff, and I love. I'm going to quote you on that too. By the way, I was hiding from my own dreams. I don't know if that's an original one or not, but um, I think there's so many of us that do that, especially veterans that they find themselves in the same scenario that you were in when they're transitioning. Whether they did a 4-year enlistment or they're retiring, now they're transitioning again, and they really have a hard time deciding, okay, what is it I'm going to do? Do I go do what I really want to do? And a lot of us don't really know what that is sometimes. Or do I go do what what everybody else thinks I should go do and what everyone's going to be happy with and comfortable with me doing? And that's, going to school and going to get a job. So, here at Veteran on the Move, this entrepreneurship thing is not easy. It's risky. There's lots of failure and disappointment involved in it. So it's no laughing matter to jump into this entrepreneurial realm. And so I'm real curious how, after you've been through all of this and this deep soul searching, how did the entrepreneurial stuff start percolating to the top?
When I was at UCSB and working on the PhD, at a certain point, I was like, all right, I need to get outside. I need to be moving around. I looked in the mirror one day and like I said, I was nursing a bottle of whiskey probably through my whole academic career. And I looked at myself. I was smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. I was still chewing Copenhagen. And I was in my 20s and I looked like an old man. I had grays coming out. I had circles underneath my eyes. My ulcerative colitis I didn't know it was ulcerative colitis at the time, was starting to flare up. And I was, not to get graphic for anybody, but if you know what ulcerative colitis is, it's when your immune system starts attacking your intestinal tract. And so I was running to the bathroom about 20, 30 times a day. And I thought I had cancer. And went to the doctor, and eventually got a colonoscopy. And they told me I had ulcerative colitis. I was actually enthused at the time because I was enthused that I didn't have cancer. And I said I got to make a change. I got to do something for myself. And so I started training. I started working out. Started getting back doing PT every day. I started hitting the gym every day, and I got really into it. It was the only thing I really did outside of my academic work at the time. I'd spend hours in the gym after classes, after I finished teaching classes, because I was teaching undergraduates up there. And then, eventually I decided I was going to get a side job. And I got a side job at a corporate gym as a personal trainer, and got my personal training certification and found I was really good at it. I had competed in a few powerlifting meets. I became a state champion here in California. I won a few local natural bodybuilding shows, and I'd been helping a lot of clients to get better. And so one day I said, I was looking up different things I could do aside from being a professor. I was like searching for something else that would get me out of the academic side of things. And I was on a bodybuilding forum, and I saw that a gym out of Texas was offering kind of licenses to use their branding if you wanted to open up your own gym. And so I got with a friend of mine, and I opened up my thrift savings plan. I took my savings out. I used all the money that I had saved up, and we got a warehouse out in Long Beach, California. And I started a gym called Metroflex Gym Long Beach. Financing came mostly from my friend's family, and he was my business partner, and he had the controlling shares. And then I took a minority share and basically ran the front office and the marketing and and started taking on clients down there to try and earn some money. So that was my first entrepreneurial adventure.
And so you're running this gym. At some point, you started getting into, you opened up your own YouTube channel, right? Was that when you were at the gym?
Right. Well, here's what happened. When you open up a brick and mortar business, right, and you hear entrepreneurs say this all the time, it's going to take more time and more money than you're ever going to think. And we had this idea in our heads that we were going to open up this amazing playground gym that everybody was just going to flock to and love and everything like that. And so we got our real estate agreement. We moved into the place. We got the permits from the city of Long Beach. We got our business license. We set up. We had a grand opening. Nobody came. And nobody came for quite a while. Right?
What? You mean you had this great idea and nobody showed up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I'm working the front desk. We're working our butts off. One of the things I did was the space was very unique. The gym was very unique, and it was actually a paradise for photography. And so we started contacting different magazines in the fitness industry. They came down. We let them get some free shoots, and then we started getting deals with them where they would pay us a certain amount of money in order to do photography shoots there. And soon they were getting licensed or getting contracts with the major magazines. Our gym was published in all the major bodybuilding magazines, all the major fitness magazines. We started getting people from around Southern California kind of flocking to the gym. We had a couple of different YouTube celebrities come out of there. Guys like, I don't know if you ever heard of C.T. Fletcher or Mike Rashid, but they started coming around, and this was before they were famous. And myself, I started coaching a lot of different types of athletes. I coached a few NFL players, I coached a few pro bodybuilders, and I was a nutrition coach for both Mike Rashid and C.T. Fletcher, who, like I said, are both YouTube celebrities. At the same time, all the money I was making was still going back into the gym to try to cover the overhead, because the overhead was pretty significant. So I was literally living off of $300 a month at the time, where I was, I was literally living off of peanut butter and white bread. My own health started to go down, and my ulcerative colitis went from being in remission at the time to going into the worst flare-up I've ever had in my life. I was losing a lot of blood every day. I was running back and forth to the VA, trying to figure out how we could stop it. And it got to the point where I couldn't take one-on-one clients anymore. And eventually I ended up having to pull out of the gym. I literally had to hand over my shares to my business partner, and which was the product of a really bad operating agreement on my part. And I ended up with nothing, living out of my car, having to be very close to a public restroom at all times because of the ulcerative colitis. And one of the worst spots I've ever been in my life. But at the same time, once it happened, once I ended up losing everything, once I ended up living out of the car with nothing, just me, my dog, and the car and the clothes on my back, it was almost like I was free. Like anything was possible. And while it was a really bad and scary feeling, it was also really, really liberating. It was amazing. And that's when I had a friend of mine give me a laptop computer, and that's when I started my YouTube channel.
Wow. You reminded me of, I think it was Tim Ferriss, from the 4-Hour Work Week. He had said, a lot of people hesitate to follow their dreams because they're afraid they're going to lose everything. And he's like, look, just pretend you've lost everything. Just go out, live in your car for a week, get a tent, live in the woods for a week, and eat hot dogs and squirrel, and just live that. And once you do that, you realize, it's really not. It's not quite so bad. And just to eliminate that fear of, well, I guess if I lose everything, I know that I'll still be okay. And so you've definitely hit bottom. So you got this laptop, and you're going to start a YouTube channel. So what happens next?
So I started doing videos, and at first the videos were like therapy for me, where I was just kind of talking to the audience, kind of doing vlogs and everything like that. And then some of the people that I had coached previously, had helped previously, like CT Fletcher and Mike Rashid, both had millions of followers on YouTube. They started kind of slinging my name around, and the channel started growing. I never got millions of followers or anything like that, but the content I was putting out there was very valuable. Meaning I wasn't getting up there and just kind of flashing my abs or, filming myself working out. I was giving solid advice about what people could do to live a healthier lifestyle, to get fitter, to build muscle, to do a lot of the things that they saw a lot of their favorite fitness celebrities doing. And I started giving this content out for free. And people started asking me questions. They started sending me questions to answer on the YouTube channel. And then eventually I got some in-person clients that I could take care of because I was back in remission from my ulcerative colitis. So I started taking on a few clients there, earned a few dollars there. But then I started getting emails from people in Australia and people in the Middle East and people in Europe who are asking me if I could write them plans, or I could write them workouts, or I could write them diets. And I said to myself, well, how am I going to do this? And so I sat down at my computer. I started looking at different things. And at the time, I was mildly computer literate. I had some experience writing research papers and doing research for, my academic career. But I said, how am I going to deliver plans to these guys in an efficient manner? And so I went into Google and I found Google Drive and I found Google Docs, and I started sharing plans with people from across the world on Google Docs. And I went from having nothing to earning, $10,000 a month as a personal trainer, handling clients one-on-one from around the world. And I went from living in my car to living in a rented room down the street from the gym where I worked out at. I found myself a really wonderful woman who I'm still with today. And God bless her, because she started dating me right at the cusp of that before I had anything. And slowly but surely, I started eking out a life for myself and continually delivering content, filming, 3, 4, 5 times a week, answering questions, writing ebooks. I wrote 3 or 4 ebooks, started putting out programs out on exercise.com. And that's when I finally, went from having nothing to, though I was living in a rented room at the time, it felt like a palace to me, and had what I felt was a really comfortable lifestyle.
Yeah, that's quite the recovery. I mean, and it all happened, via YouTube and working out and just developing one-on-one relationships with people, even though they might have been halfway around the world. So next thing you know, you're rising up through the ranks of the personal training industry, so to speak. So are you still doing some of that, or are you mostly, because I want to hear about how you got started on Warrior Soul Apparel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I keep a few clients. I don't keep the client load that I used to have. At one time I had 100 different clients from around the world. Now I keep about 5 or 6, just because it's something I like to do. And honestly, the training it's more of a hobby for me now. And the people that I work with now are people that I have really stuck by me through the years and who I really like. Now, the way I got it started on Warrior Soul Apparel was I was thinking about what I was doing, and I was thinking about what I was doing in the fitness industry. And I was known as the guy that people would come to for cosmetic purposes, like helping them out to get six pack abs, helping them out to get, the bodies that they wanted, things like that. And there is some satisfaction to that. But I said to myself, Chris, there's people out there who legitimately need help. There's people out there who legitimately need a message, and that message needs to be something more than get the leanest body possible, get as muscular as possible. And so two things started taking hold in my life. In the training side, I was starting to focus more on wellness than on cosmetics. And I started introducing concepts to my audience about how they could live longer, healthier lives. At the same time, I was starting to hear about, the veteran suicide rate, the veteran homeless rate, things like that. And I said to myself, Chris, you've been blessed. You have been absolutely blessed. And you were so lucky to live the life that you have lived, to have experienced living in your car, to have recovered from that. There's people out there who need a message. And I wanted to do something for veterans. But at the same time, I knew that most of them couldn't afford to work with me one-on-one. And I didn't have the bandwidth to coach people, beyond what I was doing at the time. So I said, what can I create that veterans are going to be able to afford? And what can I do that's going to be able to spread a message? And I said to myself, it's t-shirts. Because when you think about t-shirts, they're actually, each one of them is kind of like a mini work of art that spreads a message, that gets out there to people. And, they don't cost much to produce. And I had connections with a Marine that I knew up in Santa Barbara when I was going to school there. We were friends, and he had opened up his own kind of screen printing shop. So I contacted him. I got an on-demand print deal with him that we're still working together to this day. And we set up a website through Shopify, and that's how it started. Now, once we got into it, again, I was like, all right, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be a clothing company. It's going to inspire veterans. And for the first 2 years that it existed, it was doing nothing. It was I was literally making, I think the first year we made $500 total. The second year we might have made $650 total. And part of it was, there was a few things. One, the branding wasn't clear. The first logo that I had was a Chinese character, the character Wu, which means martial in Chinese, but it's literally translated to put weapons down, which applies to veterans, the warriors who've put their weapons down. But looking back on it, that wasn't a very clear brand for them. And in addition to that, we were also trying to put out these kind of inspirational clothing patterns that really weren't working out. The message was kind of falling flat. And so I kept trying at it. And for 2 years, I was kind of torn between trying to run Warrior Soul and trying to be a personal trainer, and doing the things that earned me my revenue. And about a year ago, I said to myself, you're either going to do this or you're going to put it down and shut it down. So I gave myself 6 months. And I started experimenting with Facebook ads. I started experimenting with designs. We changed the logo from the Chinese character to just saying Warrior Soul, a simple logo that says Warrior Soul with a K-bar going through it. We started making simpler designs with simpler messages for people to digest a little bit better, that appealed to more of the younger crowd. We also narrowed our niche. Rather than appealing to everybody at first, I started narrowing down to a niche of Marine Corps veterans and active duty Marines. And we focused on that for the product side. And then on the content side, we started introducing more of our best life concepts. And when I say best life concepts, it's encouraging veterans to live their best lives, to inspire veterans to live their best lives, to live while they're here. And we went from doing less than $1,000 a year to 6 months later doing $10,000 a month in revenue, total sales. And from there, we've been $10,000 to $15,000 a month since then.
And it was really a branding, a messaging, a marketing, and a matter of simplifying the message and the product. And so really, once you change your mindset, it just started to flow after that. Because I'm looking at your website, man. I love some of these T-shirts. I mean, they definitely speak to me, being a Marine. It's awesome. And before we got on the line here, I was like, I wonder if that's a model or if that's Chris. So it is actually Chris on the website modeling his own T-shirts. He looks like a steely-eyed, throat-slitting snake eater kind of guy. But again, bootstrapping it from the top. Who's going to model the T-shirts? Well, I guess I am, because I don't have to pay myself.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, Joe. To anybody who's going into e-commerce right now, or who's thinking about, regardless of what you're selling. I mean, you're selling trinkets, widgets, firearms, clothing, jewelry, whatever it is. There's a few things that you have to consider. And the first is this: we live in what I think is one of the most amazing times to open up a business. There's never been a better time in history to open up a business. And it's because we have so much disruptive technology out there, where you can drop ship, where you can do on-demand fulfillment, where you can start a website without paying a web developer thousands of dollars, and you can change that website on your own whim without having to call him up and making him change anything. Before you start writing a business plan where you're planning on forking out tons of money for these things, really do your research on the technology that's out there, because there's so many different things that can help you. You don't want to be spending, and that's the biggest lesson I learned from opening up that gym. When you're spending so much money on overhead, you've really got years before you're ever going to be able to do anything with it. With an online business, however, if you do it in the right way and you're reinvesting your money where it should be, which is in growing your business, developing your products, and getting ads out there that are going to get your product in front of people, you can grow a lot faster.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite types of businesses is an online business, especially today, especially for veterans. You can start it while you're still in, before you get out. If you're in the middle, or even if you've gotten out and you're working at the JOB, you can get your online business up and running while you're still paying the bills with the JOB, and eventually transition away from it. So I'm a huge proponent of the online business. And you're right. I mean, if you stand up a brick and mortar store, the amount of initial cost and capital outlay and the startup and all that is just, I mean, you're almost setting yourself up for failure if you really think about it, just to throw out several $100,000 in loans and everything else. And you got a lot to make up for. And then if no one shows up, you're paying that off the rest of your life. So the online business works great. You can always follow along with the brick and mortar later on once you've got a proven strategy and a proven product. But well, hey Chris, we're getting close to the end of our time here, unfortunately, because I'd love to keep talking business. And you've told us a great story. Essentially, you got out of the Marine Corps, you rose to the top academically, but it wasn't what you were looking for. You literally hit rock bottom, physically, mentally, and financially, and clawed your way back via the online entrepreneurial realm of things. And I mean, what a great story. I'm really glad to hear, most importantly, that you're making money now. You're doing things on your own terms, and you've essentially made the full transition to becoming an entrepreneur. And you definitely ended up hitting bottom, to get to where you are today. So I would like to put a plug in for your business. The website is actually warriorsoulfitness.com, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
warriorsoulfitness.com.
warriorsoulfitness.com. Great looking t-shirts there. Go check them out. And I'd like to give you the last word. If you could throw something in there for that veteran, soon-to-be veteran that's listening, that really thinks they may want to give this entrepreneurial thing a try. Don't really want to do the corporate America thing. It's not going to be a good fit. What would you say to that individual that's looking at entrepreneurship as an option for them?
The biggest thing I would say is this: be ready to work. There's days when I'm on top of the world, and then there's days where I'm sitting here for 12, 14 hours trying to figure something out. But it's all part of the journey. None of this is going to happen quickly. Don't expect it to be a get-rich-quick scheme. Expect this to be one of the hardest things you do in your life. At the same time, what I would say is this: there is no greater pleasure, I think, other than possibly having a family. And I say that just because I'm not a father yet. But there is no greater experience that you are going to have in your life than being able to create something from the ground up and being able to present that to the world and having the world respond to it. And if you're out there and you're searching for meaning and you're trying to search for something that you're going to do with your life, then give it a shot. There is no reason not to. And like I said, we're all going to die. Someday, 100 years from now, me, you, everybody listening to this podcast, we're going to be not here. And we got to make the most out of the time that we have while we are here. And we got to make our dreams come true.
All right, Chris, sage advice. I wish we could keep going, but try to keep the show close to 30 minutes, and we're already over on that. But awesome, great talking with you. So we'll wrap this one up, and I'm also going to be doing an interview with Chris. We're going to turn the tables, and he's going to interview me. So go take a look over there at Warrior Soul. You can find him on Facebook, and he's got a podcast, and I'll be on that podcast here in the near future if you want to check it out. So, Chris, great talking with you. Thanks for sharing your intimate story with us. Really appreciate going deep with us like that, and glad to see you're back on your feet and things are going well for you. So these two devil dogs are Oscar Mike. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran